Hi all, welcome to my Team of the Week 1 market review. Apologies if I sound like really crappy, starting to fall a bit under the weather, but joys of life. So we're basically going to review Team of the Week 1 in as much depth as we can. We used to always do this market review in previous FIFAs, but thought I might as well do it again this FIFA because it's always kind of good to break down like where I would focus my coins if I was buying the investments just now. I'm not in the game currently because I'm a bit under the weather, and I thought I'd just use the graphic that of the team of the week in front. So I'll break it all down one by one, and I'll kind of say if it's like a good investment, a bad investment, keep away kind of thing. So Bunu 84 rated. At the moment, he's probably going to be one of these cards that's worth nabbing. It's where you can get them cheap enough. Like, in an ideal world, I'd like to be saying discard, and like in reality, for pretty much all of them, you're aiming between at most like 12 to 15k, and it's going to be hard enough as it is. Maybe the 81s and 82s generally, except for SAR, you may be able to get them near like discard, but it's going to be a challenge regardless. Thiago Silva, he's not going to be desirable because of pace, but he's a week one in form, and that's what usually is a desirable aspect of the cards. Is people go, oh, I want that card, and it's just a good club stock to have. Usual 86s are in previous FIFAs usually are like 25-30k for an 86 in form. So if you're anywhere under 25k, I'd personally be aiming under. I'd be trying to aim for near 20. It's the kind of thing I would sit down and try and snipe. But if I was honest, I would only go for them if you're trying to stock up every inform and hold for a rainy day, as it were. David Garcia, same applies, just the pace that hampers him a little bit. But as I said, if you can get under like that 12-15k bracket, obviously if you can get him for 10.5, you're laughing, but it's going to be a challenge as people try and compete for kind of like investments early. Faroni of Hellas Verona, pretty well rounded card. He pretty much just needs another inform to actually be even more usable. But with Serie A options as it is, are you going to realistically use him? I highly doubt it, because you might look at Lazzari and Florenzi as base cards, and Florenzi could be the type of player that could end up with a back-to-back one to watch, so worth keeping that one in mind. Kimmich, just don't even bother. Unless you can snipe him for like sub 50k or something, then I would keep well away. Diaz is another one that's going to be tricky, but if you can get him cheap, you're kind of laughing. Like, he's like 83s generally are 18k at maximum for them, so but I'd be aiming always under 15. That's always my kind of threshold. But for me personally, I always aim for 10.5s and like, or even at most 12 to 12.5. I'd really be stingy. SAR's not going to be cheap because he's Prem, so don't be surprised if he remains quite expensive for a wee while. So yeah, keep an eye on that one. He's more a case of maybe try and buy later as the game goes, maybe like 5 or 6 weeks in, but always monitor him regardless. Salah's kind of just not going to be worthwhile sniping unless you can turn him over for a good profit. That's kind of what he'll be useful for. Dzeko, from an 85 perspective, should be around that 20-22 mark, but he's also the type of card that could be 15 to 18, and I would still go for him nonetheless. Definitely looks an option that will be handy for investments, especially with Serie A Player of the Month this year. That's what's going to be handy with him. Despite obviously his rating, people might think, oh, that's a bit high, but depending on certain players in the league, you never know. Tony, because he's now got 2 boosts, makes him even more desirable, and he actually kind of does. Pace, shooting, physical, looks pretty well rounded, and he's easily going to be like a Watkins kind of card. Like last year when it was quite expensive for his second, it was like 60-70k, and it's not going to be cheap, so keep that one in mind. Vinicius Jr., he'll be pretty pricey as well. Wouldn't surprise me if he stays near the higher end initially for his price range and then kind of dwindles down as the weeks progress. And as you can see, like the subs and reserves, pretty much all these guys are generally going to be prime fodder. Caputo last year was an early in form. I'm going to talking to him. Like last year, he was very easy to get a leak for discard. Like I think I must have had about 20 or 30 of him at mid price, and then because he was selling for like 15k, I was always constantly getting him under 12.5, and it was like back up for 15. It was beautiful, because I was always saying to people, if you were wanting Caputo, it was 13k and under, and that's kind of what helped a treat with him. Wirtz is another one that's could be pretty useful as time goes. Turgot is another one I'd want to touch on briefly as well, because of Silver Stars. If we get that back this FIFA, people always look to try and get him in their clubs early. He's definitely a useful option to have for like if you're trying to build like the best possible within the league, the card types, or even so like silvers. So definitely one in that bracket. But for me personally, Caputo, Wirtz will be a little bit of work to get for min price, but if you can, fair play. Wirtz has that 86 dribbling to kind of help his case, which should help immensely. Toonstra obviously is Feyenoord, so it's like depends if you're trying to build like a best possible Eredivisie team. Robocho plays in like not most glamorous of leagues, I'm afraid, but it's still one player that it's because he's got a strong nation, that's what helps his case. And if I was myself personally, I would be all out trying to make sure, because he plays in Poland instead of say the Portuguese league, he's definitely one worth trying to nab. Hornblast Diallo are always going to be handy for player of the months, because of like whether it be Ligue 1 or the Bundesliga, but it's also because of their nations. They will always prove handy. It's never worth passing up on. And obviously players like Bertram, Kamara, Douglas Vieira and Connaught Player, these players, despite being under 81 rated, they are Team of the Week 1 informs. They will have a bit of desirable value about them, and that's what will bring a bit of like not novelty, but it's a bit of like people will try and forget about them. And like I've seen many Team of the Week 1 informed, especially when they're the lower rated ones, and they suddenly go for like double what they should be, because obviously they should be pretty much like 10k, but they're suddenly like 20. But hopefully you find all this useful. Let me know, folks, in the comments below what you're going to go for. As I said, when I'm fit and healthy, I'll be going for Ferrone, pretty much all the 81s and 82s, and even the discard ones. That's where I will be targeting my coins and efforts. SAR will be probably a bit over ambitious, but I'll try it nonetheless. Smash likes always, folks. Sub to the channel if you're new, follow me on Twitter, and I'll catch you all later.